Okay, so I'm standing here at the back of our townhouse site. You can see behind me, just there, that's another little townhouse development. And that little square roof line just up there behind me, that's another townhouse development. And that one kind of goes a bit over there. And this is the back of our block. And if we go down that fence line all the way back through the trees, behind those trees, right kind of there is our house. That's the neighbour's house. And that's the chunk of backyard we're buying from them. So this is the back of our site. Now, what I really want to talk about today is how our power system is going to work. So normally when you do a townhouse development, you run power to the edge of your development. You then run underground power to each of your townhouses in the strata title. And they then each get a TasNetworks meter. So the TasNetworks meter is controlled by TasNetworks. So essentially the TasNetworks infrastructure stops at each of your meter blocks around your property, on the wall of each of the properties. They have to be accessible to the TasNetworks meter reader type people so they can check on them and confirm them and do their thing. And everyone pays TasNetworks. So the cost of being connected to TasNetworks is actually, it's not cheap, it's not free. And you pay a base level cost. So you pay a cost for each meter. So we've got a time of use meter, which you can get, and that's what most of the tariffs are now. We also, on other houses, when you've got the other types of meters, you've got a standard billing meter, and then you have what's called a hydro heat meter. So hydro heat's cheaper, but can only be connected to, I believe, your hot water system, and definitely to any fixed heating systems in the house. So not plug-in stuff, but fixed. So split systems, radiant heaters, whatever you got hooked up. So they're moving towards a more single meter setup with a time of use. But the big cost is the connection. It's not actually, your power usage is a variable, but your connection is you can't do anything about it. So in our development, what we're putting on the roof of each is, at this stage, we're planning to put 5 kilowatts of solar panels on the roof of each of the townhouses. And we're planning to put a 14 kilowatt hour, gotta use the right terms, I'm only learning this stuff, 14 kilowatt hour battery, roughly. We might go bigger, we might go smaller, depends what we use. My preference is to use the Tesla one. They're not necessarily the cheapest or best value, but they have a real brand cachet. And let's face it, we're selling a product. They do the job, they store power, they've got smarts, the software's going to continually be upgraded. So they're a really good option, and they look cool. So, there's a few good things going for them. So we'll have power on each and batteries on each. Now, this is where ours gets a bit interesting. So on a normal one, what you would do is power would be generated on your roof by the solar panels. The power would go through your power points and into your appliances that need it. Any excess power would go into your battery. Once your battery's full and you don't need any more power inside your building, you would then be sending that power off grid. And here in Tassie, you get 6 cents per kilowatt. Now you're buying it for between 26, 24 and 30 cents a kilowatt, depending on sort of how things pan out there and which meter you're connected to and what tariff you're using. But 6 cents, 30 cents, that doesn't really line up very well. So I sell you a kilowatt for 6 and you sell it back to me for 30. And that's not real fair. So that's a bit crappy. But once you've got a 5 kilowatt system and a battery and everything else, there's a good chance you might actually just use all your own power on site, which is a really good thing. You use, whatever kilowatts in a day, you generate it on your roof, you put it in your battery, you're happy. Problem is that fixed charge of having your meters and all your tariff, all your stuff connected at the edge for your TasNetworks connection, that's all there. And you still have to pay that even if you don't use the power. And you only get the 6 cents if you generate excess. So there's a couple of downsides. So we're planning something a little bit different. Now, if you guys want to check out the company we're looking at using, it's called Power Ledger. They're a company in WA. What they're working on is these microgrids. Now, their idea for microgrids is everyone has their own power setup. So you consume or you generate power, but you exist within your little system. And then other people all around the suburb exist in their system. And then what happens is you all have really strong monitoring at your edge of your little chunk, and you can sell kilowatts out into the grid, and the person down the road or anywhere else in your setup can pull it out. And that's where they're going. And they've done that in Perth. They've done some demonstration models where essentially the connection that you pay for to the grid becomes just an infrastructure connection for your trading network. Now, we haven't done that here, and frankly, it doesn't suit what we're doing. But what we are doing here is planning to implement their same thing. So instead of having a TasNetworks meter on each of our properties, our 7 properties will have smart meters. So these smart meters connect into the internet, and they feed all their readings and everything back to, they keep them on board, but they also feed them back to the Power Ledger software. So the Power Ledger software knows how much power they generated and put out past the smart meter into our townhouse development. Now, none of our houses will be connected to TasNetworks. They'll all be connected to our townhouse network, which we'll call a microgrid. And essentially, if anyone else in any of the other townhouses is the home and using power, their fridge is running, whatever, and they don't have their own power, they'll buy it from you. So say you generate an extra 5 kilowatts and you sell it to the grid, normally you'd get 30 cents. That's pretty piss poor. Now, if you generate 5 kilowatts and you sell it to your neighbor in the microgrid and it doesn't leave the system, there might be the ability to sell it for 12 cents and you make 60 cents. But also, like if their battery's empty, you can charge their batteries quicker, and they can charge their batteries a lot cheaper that way. There's all sorts of different things. If you're on holidays, you could be basically discharging your battery into the microgrid and selling all your solar power, which you generated for free, stored in your batteries all day. And then when everyone comes home at night, turns on their stuff, when their batteries all start running out, you just start selling them your power, and instead of buying it from the grid at 30 cents a kilowatt, they're buying it from you for 12 cents a kilowatt, or whatever the rate is. And the other thing is, no one's paying the fixed connection charge. So the connection will be at the edge of the property boundary, right at the front. We have a TasNetworks connection there. That's where our main power line comes into. And the body corporate will essentially maintain a power bill. The body corporate will pay for the connection, and any power used will essentially get billed via the internal network. So the fixed charges will be body corporate's problem and paid out of body corporate fees. So you're all still paying it, but 7 of you are paying for one connection instead of 7 separate connections. So that's quite a lot of saving. Plus you're getting better value for the power you sell because you can sell it within your network first. Plus what's the other benefit? I don't know. It's just better. It's more fun. Let's go with fun. I like the software element. You get to watch how much you're generating, you get to watch how much you trade, everyone's kind of happy. So, you know, there's a nice sort of element. If you want to upgrade your batteries and you want to store more power, you want to put bigger panels in, you want to always generate extra power and sell it inside your little microgrid, that's a really cool idea too. So essentially, the components are the solar panels on the roof, the batteries on the houses, the smart meter at the edge of your little property that then goes into the microgrid. It's the microgrid itself and the software that monitors it all and keeps track of it all. So the software uses blockchain. You know, it's a fancy technology thing, but it's really, really accurate ledger of how much power is going where, when, and how. And it's really, really secure and really, really well done. So yeah, anyway, so that's interesting. The panels that we're looking at using are going to be around the 300 watt mark, 300, 350. So it means more power on the roof for less panels on the roof. We have our roof lines designed so that we can fit about 4 panels really fitting nicely into one of our fascias. They're angled really, really well, but then the rest of our panels, because our roof lines don't angle towards the roof. I mean, if you look here, you look up that block, the slope goes up and away from us, and our roof lines all go up and away from us just so it looks right, so that all the maximum amount of sunlight gets down into each of the courtyards coming back. We did look at angling the roof to suit the solar, but the reality is angling it to suit the solar was, you know, problematic, and shaded too much of the courtyards. We're trying to create the best sort of circumstance. So now we've put all the solar panels on stands. It'd be nice to, we've got a little bit on the fascia area, but then the rest are on stands. It'd be nice to do it in a slightly prettier and more sort of integrated way, but the reality is we're better off having less shading and better design. So anyway, that's how the microgrid works. If any of you have any questions, I'm happy to answer, but yeah, check out power ledger. I'll chuck the link down below. We don't know who we're using locally. We've talked to 3 different companies locally who are all kind of keen to be involved. The intention is that this will be part of our selling strategy. This will be part of, you know, what we're marketing. Finance is looking like we're going to have to do some pre-sales. So, you know, the more we can kind of angle this and sell the kind of concept. These are also eligible for first homeowners grant, which is still extending down here, which is kind of a cool thing. So yeah, any questions, feel free to ask. Happy to help. I'm going to head off and talk to the architect. Final meeting before we submit our DA. Apparently there's some questions around retaining walls and stuff, so we'll cover that off, and yeah, talk to you guys later.